I'm Arthur with Civitas, and we're going to be talking with Olivia Apollo. This is going to be the first in what we hope is a lengthy series of interviews with Civitas alums. But Olivia is someone who um, we had not had that much contact with recently, and then we reconnected not too terribly long ago. And I've just been fascinated with the work you're doing. And so I want to ask you about that, but I want to start with your days with Civitas. And if you can tell us a little bit first about where you were in school and then what brought you to Civitas and how that might relate to the work you're doing now
Yeah,
as an advocate for people with disabilities.
sure. So my high school experience was a little different. My family moved back to St. Louis right before I started high school. My grandmother was very ill, and as a nurse, my mom wanted to be here where the family was. And I started out at St. Joseph's Academy. And when I was there, there was an older student named Rosella who told me about Civitas and said she thought I might really like it and
Hmm.
I should come with her to one of the events, like a country draft and then like a movie night. And so I did. And I really did enjoy it. I've always been interested in different cultures around the world in different countries. I'd been studying Mandarin for a while by this time. So it was really exciting to me to find other people who liked that. I eventually left St. Joseph's Academy after they had a change in administration and they proved not to be as helpful for working with students with disabilities as someone might hope for the time that I was attending. And so I transferred to Notre Dame High School. I was the only one at Notre Dame to continue going to Civitas. It was a lot smaller, so I don't think anybody really knew about Civitas, but I kept going because I had such good friends there and I enjoyed it. And it was just a nice place to go to not feel like the new person all the time because I was a junior at this time, and so that was difficult. And while I was at Civitas, I never got to write my own resolution. I was always very busy with classes, but
Hmm.
I did get to represent China in one of our summits. And that was really exciting to me as someone who traveled there and who spoke Mandarin. And, just as a country that was on the Security Council, it felt like a big and exciting role to do. And then in my senior year, Civitas really helped me in the aftermath of the election. It was my first time voting, and the outcome was really hard for me. And not many people in my life wanted to talk about it. I think everybody was just so shocked. So to be able to come to Civitas and have a safe space with other kids around the city who could, say what they were experiencing or what their fears were was really helpful. Uh, does that help?
Yeah, it helps a lot, Olivia. I'm thinking just there may be some people who need a reference point. What
Yeah.
election are you talking about? And
The
what were your thoughts?
2016 the 2016 election.
Okay.
Yes. So
And so Trump won somewhat unexpectedly.
yes.
I remember some students from Webster Groves High saying that while they had been at school, they hardly ever heard anyone else talk pro-Trump. But after he won, they came out, they were,
Yeah.
very demonstrative. Did you have a similar situation?
So I would say Notre Dame was kind of a school divided in some ways. We had some of the demographics you would traditionally associate with an all Catholic private girls' high school. So,
Hmm.
families of a certain monetary background who, have more resources and connections. And then there were others who were from other parishes that maybe didn't have as much money or had more diverse backgrounds, especially because Notre Dame had accepted some girls from other schools in the city that had closed. And so
Hmm.
they transferred there. And so some of the school kind of, it felt like, supported that happening and some didn't. But it was kind of something that a lot of people just weren't comfortable talking about because it was such a small school and we're all classmates, like we just kind of wanted to get along. We didn't want to debate that kind of thing with each other unless we were like really close friends.
So let me ask you this. During that presidential election campaign, do you remember when Trump made fun of, mocked a reporter who had a disability?
Yes.
Okay. Again, we're talking about 9 years ago, so there may
Yeah.
be some people
Yeah.
who don't know exactly what he did, and you don't have to physically try to show,
No,
just tell us
he,
basically what he did.
I'm afraid I can't remember the reporter's name.
Neither can I. I
But
know he was with the New York Times.
yeah, he went on national news and mimicked the man's speech impediment and mimicked some of his gestures. I think the man had a tremor in his hands, and so he had trouble controlling the movement of his hands. And when he did that, it was just very like it was obvious that he was like questioning the intelligence of this man and being very ableist towards him. And as a student with a disability in an environment where there weren't really any other students with disabilities, that made me really, really angry.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, some other questions as we go along to just make sure that people are uh, familiar with what you're talking about. The
Yeah.
term ableist, can you tell us what that means?
So ableism is discrimination against someone who has a disability, whether that's a physical disability, an illness, something like that. Basically, people are judged as less valuable because they need to do things differently.
Well put. Thank you. Thank you. So, as we see you this evening, there's no evidence of a disability. Are you comfortable sharing with us?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was born with cerebral palsy, which is a condition that happens if someone has an injury to their brain during or after birth. We don't necessarily know what causes that to happen. It could be a lack of oxygen to the brain. And cerebral palsy is a spectrum. So some people have cerebral palsy and you would never know to see them. Other people, it is very obvious because they use a wheelchair or they have severe tremor or they have difficulty speaking. So a lot of times people don't know unless they see me using my mobility aids. I use an electric scooter if I'm going a long distance.
Got it. Okay, thank you, thank you. So, the work you're doing now is, uh, something we really want to focus on. But take us quickly, if you can, between high school and the work you're doing now, the college, and
Yeah, so I
yeah,
went to Webster University because they had such a strong international program. They had the Confucius Institute there. They had so many options for studying abroad. They had so many international students, and that was wonderful to me. I really, really enjoyed my first 2 years there. And then when COVID hit, it really impacted the university in a negative way just because they were so small and they'd had like a slow closure of many departments over time, and a lot of the international students couldn't come anymore. So it was difficult to see them kind of slide off from where they had been into really struggling. I graduated in 2022 with a bachelor's in anthropology and in global studies. And I got a certificate of language in Mandarin Chinese. At that point, there were not enough classes left being offered for me to minor in the language.
okay, excellent, thank you. Did you ever have Professor Warren Rosenblum?
Yes, he
He's
actually helped me with my thesis.
That's excellent. And he's done a lot of work, looking at global issues for people with disabilities.
Yes.
So let's jump to your current job, okay?
Okay.
If you tell us uh, the organization with whom you're working and the nature of the work you're doing.
So I work with the St. Louis Arc, which just celebrated its 75th year. So it was a big year for us this year. And I work in a department that is called Launch. which focuses on helping young adults with intellectual or developmental disability. We're the only ARC in the country that has this department, and it's only about 5 or 6 years old. I'm what's called a transition advisor, which means I work as a coach one-on-one with some young people. I have a caseload of about 7. At times, I've had as many as 10. And I just work one-on-one with them to help them reach whatever goals they have for their own independent life. And I also teach group classes or occasionally go to a conference.
So sometimes you are able to see your clients in person, but for the most part, it's by Zoom. Is that correct?
We use Teams, but yes, the program actually started in 2019, so they had to shift to remote
Hmm.
operations pretty quickly. But they found that for a lot of the students, that was more helpful because they're spread across 4 counties, and a lot of them have barriers to their transportation. So for them, meeting virtually is easier.
So I have a sense from having spoken with you previously that it's very hard to separate your commitment to your job and the current politics and the past politics about equity issues for people with disabilities. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I can try. So after I graduated college, I had gotten very sick with COVID in my last semester of college, and it hung on for several months. And so in the ensuing time, rather than being able to go to work right away, one of the things I did was take a class called Partners in Policymaking, which is run by the Missouri Developmental Disabilities Council. Every state has one of these. And this class is designed for adults with disabilities and also caregivers of young children with disabilities to come together and learn disability history and learn how the political process works. A lot of people and different issues in the community. A lot of people who take this class go on to lobby, change laws, start nonprofits, and other wonderful things like that. And it was a very small class, but I enjoyed it, and we talked
And
a
it turns
lot.
out that somebody who you know knew at Civitas, that being Reese Ellis,
Yeah,
is working, I believe, with the same agency now and uh, doing, from all I can tell, remarkable work.
yes,
But take us back. You did me a very kind gesture and let me know when there was, I believe, a Frontline or American Experience on
yeah,
um, celebrating a number of years with the American Disabilities Act.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, what it's meant to you, and concerns you might have about
Okay,
its status right now.
sure. So I've worked with a lot of nonprofits in our area. I feel fortunate that St. Louis has so many.
Hmm.
Um, one of them is Starkloff Disability Institute, and I've been a camp counselor with them for several summers. We teach a career exploration camp for middle and high school students, and one of the things we teach them is disability pride. A lot of these kids either don't know they have a disability or are very ashamed of the fact that they have. And so we teach them there's no need to be ashamed. You can achieve no matter what your limitation might be. And historically, people with disabilities have had to fight for their rights. And part of fighting for our rights was the passage of the ADA in 1990, which made discrimination against people with disabilities illegal in things like hiring and in housing and things like that, and mandated accessibility of the physical worlds. Like if you see an automatic door or a curb cut, that's because of the ADA. Unfortunately, the ADA is not embedded in the Constitution, so that means that there is the risk with the current administration having the priorities that it has and having the majority in the legislature that it has, they could decide at some point to try to remove or strike down that law.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. you work in a nonprofit, which is a 501c3,
Correct.
as Civitas is, and the federal rules under which we're governed says that we cannot engage directly in politics. Generally, that's been interpreted as meaning we can't endorse any particular candidate. But I'm curious in your situation, in talking with peers and in talking with clients, you have this deep passion about the importance of the ADA and protecting it. Are you able to talk with clients and coworkers about that?
We talk some. Many of our clients use supplemental supports like Medicaid or SSDI to have income or to have access to healthcare that they need. So the recent cuts to those have been very distressing for the people that we work with and has also kind of put things in question for us as a nonprofit in terms of, how many people can we continue to serve and how can we best help them. So there's been a lot of discussion amongst us in my department. There's about 12 of us. So there's been a lot of discussion about, what's going to happen next and what should we do as advocates for people because some people don't realize how important some of those supports are. And now that they're being threatened, it could harm a lot of people.
Do you find it curious that knowing how many people there are in the country with disabilities of one kind or another, that it's almost as if everybody, either in their family or in their core of friends, would have know someone with a disability, and yet there are a surprising number of people who really are not aware of the fact of how important it is to have legal protection for those
Yeah,
with disabilities.
I have a lot of complex thoughts about this as someone who was trained as an anthropologist and did part of my thesis on disability. The best way I can explain it is that ableism, again, that discrimination against people with disabilities that takes many forms, a lot of that is unconscious. And so people don't realize that they might not view someone with a disability as equal or not equal to themselves. And so they then don't realize, for example, well, this person needs certain things enshrined in the law to be protected. It's,
Well put, thank you. So, I think it's interesting, you and other peers of yours, your age group. Am I correct in saying that to a large extent your political awareness began during the Obama administration?
I would say yes. My family talked to me about things that were occurring during the Bush administration, but I was too young to really fully understand a lot of it. For example, I had a professor my freshman year of college who had to really go back and teach us what the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan were about because we were all like 5 or 6. And so it
Hmm.
was so momentous, but we couldn't understand at that time.
But you have experienced the whole sense of hope and optimism.
Yes, I
Or-
really admired that President Obama campaigned on Yes, We Can and on hope. I attended a camp for children with disabilities when I was really young, and their motto was I can. No matter what your ability, you can. So that really resonated with me.
And so you've and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's as if you have experienced a sense of loss, disappointment,
Yes,
hurt. Would that be
yes.
correct?
I really, when we go to school as kids and we learn history, we learn about these wonderful values that our country is founded on and says it has. It wants to be a place of equality, a place of freedom, a place where anyone can come and work hard and succeed. But then as you get older, you learn that that hasn't always been true historically for everyone. And then you learn that I guess some people are okay with that.
Hmm.
They're okay with not everyone
Yeah,
being equal. And
yeah.
that's kind of baffling to me.
So circling back directly, from that point, having majored in anthropology,
Yeah.
um, do you think there the sense of reservation, feeling um, not hopeful, do you think that is more of a norm for the human race, or do you think that optimism is, or are we just kind of going back and forth between the two?
I think that's kind of a philosophy question, actually, and maybe
Okay.
less of a anthropology question. Anthropology is really about how societies and cultures work. So you could ask me something like, culturally, are we more prone to optimism or not? And I could answer within that scope.
Well,
But
let's pretend that I had asked you that. How
okay,
would you respond?
um, that's I think when I think naturally we want to be optimistic. Like I said, we have these values of fighting for what we believe in, that everyone can succeed. But a lot of times over time, our material conditions make it hard to continue fighting for and believing in those things. Like when we talked about that documentary, Poor Kids and Born Poor, how do
Hmm.
you keep up your hope and your belief when you don't have enough to eat, or your parent is suffering from a drug addiction, or somebody in your family is very ill and they can't get care?
And Born Poor was a documentary. I think the opening presentation of it was while you were with Civitas. Is that correct?
Yes, we had a movie night and we watched it together.
And I can't remember whether it's a Frontline or American Experience, but
I think it was a frontline.
okay. In about four families, children born poor and following them from early childhood to adolescence and to adulthood. And I think that they're planning on taking it a little bit further. A lot depends on the kind of funding that PBS is able to get. So we're getting close to 30 minutes, but I do want to ask you, Olivia, if there's anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to impart to viewers that we haven't touched on.
I guess I would say, at the time that we're doing this interview, it's November 5th, and so we just had um elections across the
Hmm.
country, and progressive candidates performed very well. A lot of people were afraid that that might not happen because of how devastating 2024 election was. So that made me feel hopeful that there are people who still want to fight for a country that everyone is equal. And I think I would also want to say that more people in your life have a disability than you know. One in five, maybe even one in four, the numbers kind of fluctuate. It, disability could happen to you at any time, especially given what we're learning about COVID and how it impacts the body. So it's in everyone's best interest to fight for disability rights to protect all of us.
On that note, Olivia, I want to thank you so much. And I hope people have an opportunity to see this, to hear you. And if I'm not mistaken, you probably would be open to having people email you and send you their questions.
Yes, thank you very much for choosing me to be part of the project.